the purpose of this video is to do a demo of Access Chapter 2 Grader Project. So what I've done is I've already logged into the system and I'm about to download my materials. Now this assignment requires some extra stuff. You'll see that we have our instructions file like always, which is a Word document. We have a database file, which totally makes sense. And then we have an Excel file. And you might be wondering about that, but for now, let's just go with it and let's just get everything downloaded. So I've got my instructions, and remember, files that I'm going to be working with and may not be able to finish in one session, I want to save to my P drive. So after I hit download, I'm going to go to my little arrow, go to show in folder, and it's got it highlighted. So I'm going to click that. Well, actually first I'm going to make sure that my P drive is showing. So there it is. And then I'm going to click it and drag it and let go. So it goes into my P drive. And there you'll see there's my O2 Grader project. Perfect. So then we're going to go back here and we're going to also get this Excel file. And you're going to want to have that accessible as well, just in case you need it later. So I would recommend doing the same thing. So show in folder, and there's the Excel file. Click and drag and drop in your P drive. Okay. Now we're going to go to the P drive and we're going to leave it there for just a minute because what I want to do is come back over to the actual assignment. Come on, play nice now, computer. So I'm going to open up my instructions, and there we are. And as I have done in other videos, I want to make this bigger. Let's do page width. It's just easier to see. Okay, and I'm going to scroll to step number 1. And now we're ready to start. So we're going to start Access and open the downloaded Access file. Now remember, we want this from the P drive. Cannot stress that enough. So in this video, I'm going to open it a little differently than I did in the previous one by going to Access first. So here we go to our Programs menu, and we're just going to, or our Start menu, and we're going to scroll through, and we're going to find the program that we need. There it is. If it had been a snake, it would have bit me. All right, so we've done that, and then we're going to go over here to Open Other Files, and we're going to go to Browse, and then if we go to the left, we should scroll down, and there's our name in the P drive. So there's the 2 Grader project. That's the 1. So we're going to open that up. And I always like to just go ahead and enable content. You know, your computer may not even have that, but if it does, it's a good idea to do that if you can. Okay, now we're going to go to the next step, which is to create a new table in Design View. So we're going to go, and we're going to go to Create, and then we've got Table or Table Design, and it wants us to do Table Design View, so we're going to do that. Okay, and it says add the field name Exhibit ID, and as I frequently do for my purposes, I'm going to copy and paste. I don't recommend that you do that. I would like for you to type that because it does sometimes count off points. I'm just doing that for the sake of quickness in this video because I'm a very slow typer. So I just want to make sure that you have it. And then we're going to do the auto number data type. So we're going to change this to auto number. Okay, the next field, or the next one is, it says add the caption, Exhibit ID. Now the caption, all it does is kind of help explain or identify what that is. Now the caption option is down here. So we're going to go to caption in the field properties, and we're just going to put Exhibit ID. That means that if a person doesn't know what to type in that field, they can hover their cursor over it and that'll pop up as a little hint or helpful tip. And then we're going to set the exhibit ID field as the primary key for the table. And what primary key means, if you did not read your ebook, and you should have, but if you didn't, then the primary key is the one field that is unique for every record in the table. In other words, there will be no two items in the table that can have the primary key. For example, if we're talking about people, we will frequently use social security number because no two people have the same one, or student ID number, or whatever, something that sets it apart. So we want to set the exhibit ID field as the primary key. So to do that, it's we're going to click in the field that we want, and primary key is an option here. So we're just going to click primary key, and it puts a little key over here in the margin. Okay. Now we're going to set, we've already done that. Then we're going to save the table using the name exhibits. Okay. So we're going to save, and the table name, it wants us to call it exhibits. So, like I said, I'm a very slow typist, so bear with me. All right. And now over here in our side where all of our content is, we'll see we now have a table called exhibits. All right. Now we want to add the following fields and set their field properties as shown. So the first is going to be exhibit name. And that's actually why I don't want you copying and pasting, because it gives you some extra stuff. And the computer would actually count off for that. All right. Now, for exhibit name, it's going to be short text, 15 as your field size property. And that means 15 characters can be typed in there. And then for the caption, it's going to be exhibit name. Okay. So, data type short text, which it automatically puts in. That's nice of it. And then for the field size, we're going to come down here and it's going to be 15, not 255. And then for the caption, it's going to be exhibit name. All right, so that's the first one. Now we're just going to continue by putting in all of this information. So I'm just going to take a minute to do that. If you're following along, this would be a good opportunity for you to do the same. But it's pretty straightforward. We're just going to go in and do what it says here. Now the show field you'll see is a different data type that we've not used yet, and it's yes, no, which is basically a checkbox type thing. Okay. All right. So now we have step number 3 done, and we're moving to step number 4. Now, at this point, we've just kind of set up the table. And in the next step, we're actually going to start entering information into this new table that we've made. So things that you put down the side and the field name column are, once we switch views to data sheet, they're going to go across the top. So we're going to say, yes, we want to save our changes. And you'll see all those things that you just created are now across the top. And there's that checkbox I was telling you about. Okay. So now we're going to enter some data. So the exhibit name for the first one is going to be Asia. And it's 2 acres. The initial cost looks like is $2 million. Is that enough zeros? Yeah, $2 million. Okay. And then because we did that as currency, it puts in the commas and the dollar signs. That makes it a little easier to see. And then the yearly cost is $300,000. The date opened is 1/15/2011. And you actually can use the little thing if you want to. This might not be the smartest thing for, a long time ago. So the 2011 is a long time back. So let's just jump this way. Okay. And yes, there is a show. So we're going to show that. Okay. Now the next one is Africa for the exhibit name. And it's 4 acres. And notice I just typed in the 4, but I didn't take away the 0 first, so I got to fix that. Otherwise, we have a problem. Okay, and then this one is 3.5 million initially to start that exhibit. And the annual cost is $500,000. The starting date is February 3rd, 2014. And when it comes to the show column, that's also a yes. Okay. Now we've got the Americas. We're going to add that as our name. It's 3 acres. It's 1.5 million. Not 15. That's a real problem there. That's a really big exhibit. Yeah. There we go. And it's $250,000 for the yearly cost. It was started on 5/15/2005, and it's a no for the show. So 5/15/2005. And we'll leave show empty. Okay. And then it says to close the table. So we're going to close the table. Okay. Next step. Now this is where it gets a little tricky, and this sometimes gives people problems. We're going to import the downloaded Excel file as a new table. we're not going to open that Excel file. So it's going to look different, but we're going to import it as a new table. Okay, so using the import spreadsheet wizard. Okay, so that's where we're going to start. Okay, we're going to go to external data, Excel, and we're going to import the source data into a new table because we don't already have a table it's going to go into. We want it to go into a new table. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, we're going to choose the file name. So this is where we go search for that Excel file. And there it is. And then we click on open. And at this point, it lets us click OK. Now, notice in the instructions, it says specify that the first row contains column headings. So set the animal ID field to be indexed with no duplicates and set the animal ID field as the primary key. Okay, so this is actually 3 separate steps in this one section of the sentence. So specify that the first row contains column headings. Okay, so right now we see animals, so that's good. We've got all these headings here. We're just going to say next. And now is where we get to choose that option for first row to contain column headings. So we're going to say next because we do want that. If this was not checked, you would need to check it. Now we're going to click on next, and it says that we want the field name, animal ID, and remember it says it needs to be indexed with no duplicates. In other words, no 2 animals can have the same ID. So we're going to say, yes, we want to index, but with no duplicates. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and, let me make sure. Did it say something about data type? No, it did not say anything about data type. So we're just going to leave that, and then we're going to hit next. And then where it says let access choose a primary key or choose my own, well, it's told us what it wants us to use for the primary key, and it's supposed to be animal ID. So you would choose my own primary key and choose animal ID, and then click next. And it tells you that you're supposed to save it with the name animals. And so we're going to say import to table next, and then we're going to hit finish. Okay, now that next step it asks you about. It says do not save the import steps. Okay, so this box right here says save import steps. So we leave it unchecked, and then we click on close. And now over here in our list of items, we have an animals table. And if we look at it, there it is. That's the table that we just created from that Excel spreadsheet. Okay. Now it says view the animals table in design view. Well, I'm in data sheet right now. So let me go ahead and go back to my regular, oops. Let me get back over here. Bloop. Okay. Change my view to data sheet. And now we want design. All right. Sorry about that. Sometimes I, jump around a little. But at any rate, now we're supposed to view the tables in design view. And that's what we finally have. This is the animals table in design view. Okay. The next step is to change the field size for the animal ID to long integer. So here's the part I'm working on. Change the field size for animal ID to long integer. So there's animal ID. Down here's field size. It's currently set to double, but we're going to change it to long integer. Okay, then we're going to change the field sizes for exhibit ID and trainer ID also to long integer. So exhibit ID and trainer ID. So here we have exhibit ID. We're going to click in there, and we're going to change the field size to long integer. And what was the other one? Trainer ID. So we're going to click on trainer ID. And we're going to also go to long integer. So you see what I'm doing on each of those steps. I'm clicking up here in the one that I want to modify. You have to be in the row that you want to modify, or it's not going to make the changes to the right field. Okay, then we're going to save the table and click yes in the dialog box indicating that some data may be lost, and close the table. So we're going to save, and we're going to click yes according to the instructions, and then we're going to close this table. All right, the next step is to begin establishing relationships in the database by adding the animals, exhibits, and trainers tables to the relationship window. Okay, so the purpose of relationships in a database is to show how the different tables or sources of content are connected. And so that's what we're going to need to do. Okay, and in order to do that, we're going to click on the Database Tools tab and click on Relationships. Well, according to the instructions, it wants us to have all three tables included: animals, exhibits, and trainers. So we're just going to click and drag it over here and get those in place. And you can, just kind of try to make them neat. They're not going to automatically go somewhere unless you just double click, and I didn't do that. All right, now we're going to close the show table dialog box. Okay, we didn't actually do it quite that way. So one other way that you could do it is to use this show table thing, and that'll let you add it, but we did it a different way. Hopefully it's not going to count off points. Okay, now resize the field list so that all fields display. All that means is that you see some of them, or actually all of them, have scroll bars. So it wants us to resize these so that we can see all the fields without having to scroll. And some of them have more than others, so we just have to, make it work. Then create a one-to-many relationship between the exhibit ID field in the exhibits table and the exhibit ID field in the animals table. Okay, one-to-many. That means that one exhibit can have many animals, but many animals can't be in, one animal can't be in many exhibits. In other words, that one animal is used in that one exhibit, but one exhibit can have many animals. That's the purpose of that. Okay, so what we're going to do is, it says, again, to make that clear, one in the exhibits field and many in the animals field. Okay, so we're going to go from exhibit ID here. Actually, I'm going to start here. Exhibits to exhibit ID here. And you just kind of go over it, like drag over it and let go. Okay, and so you'll see here that you've got exhibit ID in exhibits, exhibit ID in animals, and it says one-to-many. That's what we wanted. And if you do it the right way, it's going to populate this with the right type of relationship anyway. Okay, and it says enforcing referential integrity. And this is why it's so important that you don't just do one step and then close out of something. You have to continually be going back and forth between these steps. I honestly wish that these steps were written without several in one sentence, because it's very easy to miss something. And that's why some of you are missing some of the points, is that you miss a piece of a sentence. So this enforcing referential integrity is important, and also select the option to cascade update the related fields. And cascade update related fields. There it is. So I'm checking these two boxes. And what that means, referential integrity means that there can't be one item in one table that does not exist in the other. In other words, they have to match. You can't have an animal that is connected somehow here that is not accounted for. In other words, you can't have strays somewhere. Okay, and then cascade update means that if you update one of the tables, maybe an animal gets transferred to another exhibit, then that animal can no longer exist in whatever exhibit it originally was in. So when you update it in the one place, it automatically updates in the other. Okay, and then just to make sure we're ready, select the option and move on to the next step. Yes, okay, that was it for that one. So I'm going to click on create, and it's a little hard to see in this image, but there's a 1 there and there's an infinity symbol. So that represents the 1 to many, meaning that many animals are in the one exhibit. But one exhibit, can have many animals, but each animal can't be in a lot of exhibits. Okay, it's not vice versa. All right, now we're going to create a one-to-many relationship between the trainer ID field in the trainers table and the trainer ID field in the animals table, enforcing referential integrity. In other words, one trainer can train many animals, but each animal will have only one trainer. Okay, that's what that's talking about. So we go from the trainer ID in the trainers table, and we go to the trainer ID in the animals. Okay, and we're going to enforce referential integrity, like it said there. Okay, we're going to select the option to cascade update the related fields, like we did before. And then we're going to save and close the relationships window. So let me get that saved, and you'll see again, the 1 there, the infinity there. Now, I'm kind of strange. I just like things to look neat. So it bugs me when they crisscross like that. So I like to arrange them so that I can clearly see how the things are related. And again, that's just me. They didn't tell you that you had to do that. I just think it looks better. All right, so now that we've completed that, we're just going to close the relationships window. And now we're going to move on to the next step, which is to create a query using the simple query wizard. Now, this is usually the easiest way to make a query, and the verb to query means to question. So what we're going to do is to create a tool that allows us to query the database for specific pieces of information. In other words, we get to search through the database for information. All right, so in order to do that, we're going to go back here into our database, and we're going to go to click on create. And you'll notice that there's this specific instruction is to use the simple query wizard. Okay, so we're going to click on query wizard, and we want a simple query wizard. That's the one it said, so we click on OK. All right, now it tells us it wants us to use the animals table. So if animals is not what is selected here in your list, you're going to choose animals, and it wants us to put in the animal ID, the animal type, and the date of last checkup fields in that order. So animal ID, animal type, and date of last checkup. So there's animal ID, so I'm going to bump it over, and then animal type is next, and then it wants us to use date of last checkup. So we're going to bump that one over, and then we click on next. Okay, and it wants to know what title we want for our query. So we're going to click on, it's telling us it's supposed to be called checkup list. Okay, and that it's a detail query. So if it's wanting us to ensure the query is a detail query, then we're going to go to modify the design if we need to. But here, let's go ahead and put this in. It's telling us a checkup list. Okay, so I'm going to title the query checkup list. And now I've already warned y'all I'm a slow typist, so bear with me. All right, checkup list. And then we're going to look at the modify the design, if it'll let us. It's not letting us. So we're just going to go ahead and look at the next step. I always like to look a step ahead. It says name the query and finish the wizard. View it in design view. So I'm going to go ahead and just click on finish. That's what it looks like in datasheet view. Okay, but it wants us to put it in design view. So there's, and by the way, I just clicked on the home tab to get back to the view switcher. So I'm going to go to design view. Okay, and on here it says view the query in design view and then set the criteria for the date of last checkup field so that only animals whose last checkup was before 1/1/2019 are displayed. In other words, we're looking for animals that need a checkup probably. That's kind of what's going on here. Okay, so we're going to look at it in design view, and under date of last checkup, we're going to go here to criteria. Okay, and it says whose last checkup was before 1/1/19. I'm going to copy that to make it easier for myself. Okay, so in here, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to specify. Okay, and so what we're going to do, if it was greater than, oh, sorry, let me fix that. We're going to do less than, and then we're going to put in the date right there. Okay, and we're going to see if that works. Okay, so the best way to do that is to run and to give it a check and see. It tells us these are the animals that were prior to 1/1/19. Okay, now I'm going to go back to my design view because I just ran that for kicks just to make sure that was going to work so you could see. Okay, and it says sort the query in ascending order by the date of last checkup field. Okay, so we want this one to be the one that we're dealing with, and you'll see this is the sort field, so we're going to say sort ascending. Okay, and that came from this step right here, sort the query in ascending order by the date of last checkup field. Okay, now we're going to save the query, and now we're going to run the query. And now we're going to close the query. Okay. Now we're going to create a new query in design view. So we used the wizard before, and now we're going to create one. Oh, I'm trying to get this to stop scrolling where I don't want it to. All right. So we're going to create one in design view instead of the query wizard. Okay. So to do that, we're going to go here and we're going to go to create. And we want query design. So that brings us to here. And we have to choose the tables that we want in there. So we want all three tables: animals, exhibits, and trainers. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and I'm just going to make it easy by clicking them all at one time. I just used the shift key. So I clicked on the first one and then clicked on the last one while holding shift, and it gives me all three. And it adds them to the list. Now remember, this is not the relationships window. So I wanted everything all neat and, not crisscrossy in the relationships, but this is a whole different thing. So don't let that confuse you that they're moved again. Okay, so that's all right. Now, what it's going to do is it wants us to add the following fields to the query in this order. Okay, so we're going to pull animal type. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and do what we did before just so we can see everything. I just think that makes it easier, so you don't have to scroll and wonder if you're getting everything. All right, so the first thing we want is animal type, and I just double clicked it. When you double click it, it adds it to the query. Okay, and then the next one is going to be origin, and that is in this table. So we're going to click that. That adds it to the query. Okay, exhibit name. Now remember, there's no exhibit name here, so we've got to jump to the next table and get a field from that one. And the purpose of this activity is to show you that you can query information from multiple fields or multiple tables at the same time. Okay, then first name, last name. Well, that's clearly not an animal or exhibit, so that's the trainer. So first name, last name, and then the last thing it wants is the position. Okay, so there it is. So see, we've got information from all three tables in this query. All right, and it says to set Africa as the criteria for the exhibit name field. Okay, so what we're going to do is look for the exhibit name, go down to criteria, and we just type in Africa. Okay, and then it wants us to sort the query in ascending order by origin. So there's origin, here's our sort, and we want it in ascending. And then we're going to run the query and save the query as African exhibit. That's going to be the name right there. Okay, so let's run the query. There it is. That shows us all the animals and trainers from that. Okay, and then we're supposed to save the query as African exhibit and then close the query. Okay, now we're going to copy this query in the navigation pane and paste it with Asian, and the only thing we're going to change is the place, you know, the actual area or the exhibit. Okay, so to do this, we're going to click on African exhibit. Okay, and then we're going to copy, and then we're going to paste, and we don't want it to say a copy of African exhibit. We want it to say Asian exhibit. Okay, and then we click on OK, and we're going to open Asian exhibit in design view, and we're going to modify the design view to replace Africa with Asia. That's the only difference we're going to do here, is we're just going to change Africa to Asia so that it only gives us information about the Asian query. Okay, and then we hit run, and now we see that we see only animals and origins that are in the Asia exhibit and all the trainers that work with them. Okay, and then we're going to save the query, and we're going to close the query, and then we're going to close the database, exit access, and submit. Okay, so we're going to close the database, close access. This is just a question asking if it can empty the clipboard. Every time you hit copy, it's going to save something in the temporary memory, and it's okay in this case. So we're going to say yes. All right, and then we're going to go back here to our assignment. We're going to choose the file. Remember, we're choosing from our P drive, and we're not choosing the Excel file. We're choosing the Access file that we've been working on. And the best way to know if it's the most recent one is you should be able to look at this date and time and figure out the exact time that it's done, and then look in your own screen, and is that about right? And if it is, yay. So you click that and then click on open, and then you upload, and then you submit. And kudos, your file's been submitted for grading. And again, like I've mentioned in the previous grader project video, this takes a little bit longer for the computer to automatically grade because Access is significantly more complex than the other programs. So just be patient, and then in a few minutes you can return to your grade book and see how you did.